everybody, welcome back to Forza Horizon 4 with a bit of a challenge. Now, I am no stranger to budgets. I did budget hill climbs, I did 200 miles an hour, I did cheaper than a Koenigsegg. I did a lot of budget challenges, and they're very good fun, trying to find the best car for the cheapest price. But I never thought of doing a budget danger sign, and I had no plan on doing one. However, I was watching... Yes, I do watch him on the occasion, AR12, and he did a budget danger sign for the wind turbine, and he capped it at 84,100. That was what he said was his limit. Now, he used a Mazda MX-5, a car not traditionally known for budget builds. This surprised me, if I'm honest, because the MX-5, as great as it is 35,000 credits base price, and for that you get less than 250 horsepower, over 2,600 pounds, and very little in the way of tire sizes or power upgrades for the stock engine. And I thought, hang on, 84,000 seems like a lot, and the car was not really the best choice, at least on the surface, for this, so how hard can it be? I mean, that's a pretty high budget. Normally, budgets are in the 40 grand range. I know my hill climb was 42. 200 miles an hour is literally just 25,000 credits for a stock Monaro. How hard can 84,100 be? And his target was 1,500 foot, 3-star danger sign, so that's what I set out to try and beat. Now, I started out with this. This is pretty much one of the better cars you can get for 84,000 credits stock. It's about 80,000 credits on its own as a, from the auto show, budget car, if you will. The Dodge Charger Hellcat. 700 horsepower, decent handling, pretty good acceleration, mid-high A-class, I think. And it was pretty good. I mean, for a stock A-class car, it hit 187 miles an hour and jumped off and reached about 1,000 feet, just over that, which is not bad at all for an A-class car. That'll almost get you 3 stars on the danger sign from the get-go, but it's not really enough. That's pretty much what we're working with in terms of a budget, about 80,000, so no modifications, just a car. That is what you can get for it, which is why I started out for my builds with this, the Chevy Camaro ZL1, not the 1LE, no, that was a bit too expensive, but the ZL1 costs just 60 grand. And for 60 grand, you get 650 horsepower, 650 torque. It's heavy, but it's a pretty good handling car from the get-go. And then, with my remaining budget, I ended up with 81,500 credits, 960 horsepower. It was a beast. However, it wasn't really what I would consider fast enough. You see, this challenge is a very unique one. It is pretty much, at the end of the day, a speed challenge. You need to be able to hit about 225, 230 at the exit of the jump. That's what you need to hit if you want to get the distance. So the challenge isn't so much jumping, it's getting up to speed and maintaining it on the loose surface. The jumping is a resultant of that. But the problem is, in order to get a run-up for enough speed, you have to go through these very high-speed, near flat-out corners. And it's not 90 miles an hour, it's not 100 miles an hour, it's almost 200 mile an hour flat-out corners. So, you need to have enough speed to hit 200 miles an hour, and have the handling. And this car, it doesn't have the speed. It has the top speed in the long run, but trying to get up to it with the weight and with the lack of run-up that we have, it just isn't feasible. So around just under 1,300 feet is what we ended up getting for this thing. Again, a 3 stars, but not the 1,500 that we need, so it was on to the next car. Next up was the Chevrolet Corvette, another Chevrolet, this time the 2002 Corvette Z06. This is one of the best value for money, period. It's mid-A class, it's got over 400 horsepower, it's a Corvette so it can handle, and it costs just 35,000 credits. So we're almost half the price of the Camaro from the get-go. However, this is also from 2002, which means it requires a lot of upgrades to really get it going. And what I mean by that is, this has 930 horsepower. It also has an upgraded gearbox, and some upgraded tires, because it doesn't have the grip. It's from nearly 2 decades ago. Tire technology, suspension, gearbox is well upgraded. That's what the Camaro is so good. But this thing, it needs a lot of work. And by the end of it, I had spent 81,850 credits on this. I had 250 credits to spare in my budget. And it couldn't do it. It was a very good handling car, relative to what we will see later on. I will use rewind from time to time because these cars are pushing the limits of what handling can be for these things. So I will use rewind just because I'm lazy and I don't want to reset every time I clip a wall. But regardless, it was close. It did 1,414 feet was the best that I got. So 1414. We're within 100 feet, but we couldn't do it. I can, depending on the line, I might be able to get 20 more feet, maybe 30 more feet, depending on the line and the run and the luck. But I can't get 90 feet. That's a bit too much of a ball jump, if you will. It's out of there. And I wanted it to work, I really did, but it doesn't work. Which means that the Corvette, in all of its budget brilliance and the fact that it handled relatively nicely, you would see it took some corners very nicely, it didn't have the jumping pace. It didn't have it. Which means we're gonna have to try something else. Which brings me to the Holden Monaro. The Monaro, it's quite a infamous budget car. It costs just 25,000 credits. It makes 400 horsepower from the get-go, and the engine can make 1,000 horsepower. Bones, stock engine can make 1,000 horsepower plus. It's a very, very good car. Getting 200 miles an hour from the factory in this game. It's a legend of budget builds. However, this is a very different animal. You see, what we're doing here is taking a corner. And this thing does not like corners at all, in any way. Especially when we're trying to go 230 miles an hour around a corner for less than 84,000 credits. As a result, this had a very difficult gestation period when it came to this challenge. I think I built it 2 or 3 different ways. I started out traditionally rear-wheel drive, racing gearbox, and maximum power, and that was pretty much it. That wasn't getting me close. I got about 1,350 feet out, which is not bad. It's a good starting point. But I knew I could do better, so I scrapped that build, bought a new car, rebuilt it, this time with racing tires, to try and carry more corner speed, so I could have a better run-up. And I also rebuilt the engine a little bit differently, got over 950 horsepower in it. And that still wasn't enough. It was better. You can see I was being really finicky with the rewind, and it was a lot better just by that slight tweak with the racing tires and the different build process and the different engine parts. I got 1,440 something feet, 37, which again, we're improving. We're getting better. It's getting closer, but honestly, this is starting to push the limits of this car. Because the thing that I was noticing is, as I hit the dirt, I was getting wheel spin. And I was sort of shrugging off speed as I went up this dirt hill because A, it's up a hill, and B, my wheels are spinning because they're racing tires. So, had a bit of a brainwave. Because this car is severely lacking traction up the hill, I could put all-wheel drive on it. Now, that's a problem, because all-wheel drive is 10,000 credits. I already spent 10,000 credits on the racing tires. So what I did is I took off some of the weight reduction. I actually did try around weight reduction, just to try and get it better through the corners and to, you know, have better acceleration. I took that off, put the all-wheel drive on, tuned it a little bit to give it a better power split, and then I gave it a go, and it was a lot better. It was flying up that hill. It was actually accelerating up the hill instead of losing speed, and that is what we needed, which means I did it. It required all-wheel drive, some weight reduction, a gearbox, racing tires, stock tire widths, and 1,007 horsepower, but the Monaro jumped a incredibly close 1,501 feet. It was so close. I actually hit the rewind button, which is why you saw it pause there, because I actually didn't think I was going to do it, and I wanted to reline it up. But it just clicked over to 1.39 feet higher. It did it. It cost 80,550 credits, but it did it. So, the Monaro could do it just. It takes a hell of a lot of practice, a hell of a lot of attempts, and a very unique build process, but the Monaro could get the job done. Which begs the question, what else could do it? We move from GM to Mazda for the RX-7 Spirit R from 2002. Not the 1997 one. The 1997 one is actually more expensive than the Spirit R, despite the fact that the Spirit R is faster. And the reason why I chose this is a pretty simple one. Back when I did the JDM Showdown, this sucker, bone stock, 276 horsepower, hit 170 miles an hour, plus. From the factory, with no modifications, with less than 300 horsepower. And I also chose it because of the body kits. The front bumper on this car alone added 2 miles an hour to my top speed, plus the rest of the body kit. And I hadn't even gotten any power yet. So it costs less than 30 grand. Actually, I think it costs exactly 30 grand from the base. So that leaves me with a lot of budget, and these was over 50,000 credits worth of budget to spend on upgrades. And then I can use all of that on power and gearbox. I tuned the gear ratios, and I tripled the horsepower to 900. Another reason why I chose it, gets a very good power figure. There is a problem with this vehicle, though. You see, while the RX-7 is a very good handling car from the factory, when you take all of the aero off of it and reduce drag, and when you add 900 horsepower while keeping the tires the exact same, it makes it a bit sketchy. The RX-7 is pretty well known for a drift car anyway. This one is a super drift car. It's terrifying. It's the scariest car I drove all day. It did not want to go around corners to save its life, except sideways, which is, of course, slower. It was bad. That's what you need to know. It's bad. It constantly slid off the road. And that's simply because 900 horsepower through tires that I think are 235s on the rear and 225s on the front, they're little. And while you can, if you get up to speed, they're fine. The minute you hit a corner, it just spires you off the road in some unknown direction. It was bad. But you could just about control it, and even with the uncontrollability, I did a 1,499.03 foot jump. It was so close. It was unbelievable. So could you do this run for less than the car cost at the finale? Because the car ended up totally costing 78,550 credits, which is 2,000 less than Monaro, 6,000 less than our budget, so it's doing good there. But it could be cheaper, probably, because I was doing 1,499 foot jumps out of 1,500 feet with about 75,000 credits, maybe even less than that, because I had to put tire upgrades on it, simply to get it around the corners without spinning the wheels. Because then I could carry more corner speed, and then I could go faster on the exit and up the ramp. And that did it. That did it in 1,511 feet. But I swear to you, if you get the stars aligned perfectly, you can do a 1,500 foot jump for less than 78,550 credits. But it has to be absolutely millimetrically perfect. I mean, you practically have to take into effect the curvature of the Earth if you're gonna get that run. I almost got it, but I couldn't replicate it. I tried. I really tried. I just couldn't replicate the bloody thing. But 78,550 credits is quite impressive. Again, it's 6,000 less than our budget. So my only question was, can you go any lower than that? I mean, surely there must be a will, right? Well, you know what they say, if there's a will, there is a way. And we are sticking with Mazda on this one, but we're going to Hoonigan. Because, while everyone thinks the Monaro is the greatest of the budget builds, everyone sleeps on the RX-7 Hoonigan. This is a LS swapped, 2,500 pound RX-7. Critically, with racing parts from default. It's got a sport gearbox, it's got racing suspension, it's got racing differential, racing brakes, a roll cage, weight reduction. It's got everything you could possibly want to make it better handling. And then it has an LS swap already in it, all for just 50,000 credits. So it is one of the more expensive cars to buy. I mean, it's twice as expensive as the Monaro. But you get so much car for that, it's incredible. And then you add all sorts of power to it. Again, 900 horsepower around there. The only problem was that it's a drift car. Now you can tune it to not be a drift car, because it's, full-on racing tuning is applicable. But then you add 900 horsepower to it, so it wants to become a drift car again, which makes it a very unique driving experience, I think. Very unique. And, it's a bit sketchy. It's not as sketchy as the Spirit R RX-7, but it's definitely not easy. But there you go. This one was pretty close from the beginning. It didn't require that much tinkering with to get it right. The Monaro took like 3 builds, the Chevrolet took 2 builds, the Spirit R took like half an hour to get right. This thing barely took anything at all. It was very easy. Once you got used to the driving style you had to do for it, it wasn't really a problem. It was just a matter of getting the line right. And annoyingly, I did get the line right, 1,504 feet, and it didn't record. All I had is this screenshot, so I actually had to go out again, and then I could prove to you that it could actually jump that far. Yeah, my recording ran out of space, so it didn't save the recording of the cheapest jump. How cheap was that jump, you may ask? 75,680 credits. That was it. Less than 76 grand could get you a 1,500 foot 3-star jump. That is incredible value for money. It's actually not as cheap. It's not like we're cutting the budget in half. When I first set out to do this, I honestly thought the budget would be a little bit lower. Like, the ultimate end goal would be a bit lower, like 40,000, 50,000. But it takes so much energy to get it around the corners, and it takes so much time to get these cars up to speed, and then not shrug it off up the hill, that the budget requires you to be over 70,000. I mean, this car is really pushing it. It is the perfect car. It already has tuning, it already has power, it already has upgrades ready and going. It's super cheap, you can't really get much better than this, I don't think. I tried the Mitsubishi 3000, I tried the Vauxhall VX220, I tried the R32. Nothing else came close to this, really. I tried the M5. None of those cars could match the horsepower with the tuning with the price. And this RX-7 had the trifecta. So, there you go. If you want to jump 1,500 feet on a budget, you don't use an MX-5. You use a Hoonigan Drift RX-7. So, long story short, if you want to jump a 3-star danger sign for the lowest money, you use a Mazda. That's just the end of it, apparently. Whether it be the RX-7 or the MX-5. Actually, don't use the MX-5, that's terrible, we proved that already. Use the RX-7. But there you go. That will be it for this episode of Forza Horizon 4. We'll be back with more